NFA Podcast with Nish and Frackers, all things crypto tech and Web3 markets, trends, and an analysis, but not financial advice.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the NFA Podcast, your weekly crypto market tech news update podcast, where we give you insights and overviews on weekly updates, all about the tariffs this week for some reason. But we still have some good overall emerging tech news. Stay tuned to find out.
I think so. Except there's no news attention for it. I guess it's logical because of all the markets crashing. It really started for me on Monday. And then as the days progressed, I don't know if you got the same. You got messages from Singapore and then a friend in Hong Kong and then you in Dubai. And then it just went to Europe. There was one night, that I didn't sleep until 6 a.m. because it just followed the whole thing. And it was just kind of wild. Yeah. But it's horrible. It's like watching a train wreck, I guess. I feel bad. And I had the same thing in 2008, the day that Lehman Brothers collapsed, which when you were 6, the same thing happened. It was one of those things that you can never believe Lehman Brothers. It's one of those moments that I had.
Yeah.
And I had the same at the dot-com crash in 2001, before you were born. I'm never going to stop doing that.
Back in my day.
Back in my day. And I got off a plane, I'm not joking, in LA, and my whole stock portfolio had liquidated. I had stop loss orders. This is before the mobile phone. You had to open your laptop.
Oh, God.
It's like news in the airport, and you see these people look like this, and then
That's so stressful.
And I see the Nasdaq, and it just dropped from 5,000 down. So it's one of those moments when you log in. It's so funny. I was really proud to have a laptop back then. You kids, you don't know what it was like back then. It was running on Steam. And anyway, and luckily everything had sold because I had stop loss orders and everything. And that's why the other day when I asked you, like a few weeks ago, like, shouldn't you have stop loss orders just before you went to Sri Lanka on vacation? And you're like, this is niche when I asked, don't you have stop loss orders? In for the long run.
No, I don't. And for the long run, risk it all, baby.
So how was your week? So how did you experience it in Dubai?
I think I'm really good at compartmentalizing. I think there's a thing called battered child syndrome. It's a proper psychological term, right? So it's basically, you can identify it, and I learned this in school, but basically you can identify when a kid is going through abuse because they just come across really apathetic and a bit indifferent to whatever is going around them. And like their house could be on fire and they'd be like, oh, okay, cool. And like everyone could be screaming and they'd be like, oh, okay. And that's kind of how I feel right now. I feel like I have battered child syndrome from this whole Trump saga.
I don't think those two are comparable, but okay. You're still doing good. She says they're sitting in Dubai in her like swanky place on the Palm. Oh, I have battered child syndrome. Oh, I have one gray hair. The suffering I've gone. Yeah, the suffering I've gone through, just immense. Spray me.
No, what I'm trying to say is, okay, yeah, it hurts. It sucks. Like everyone's lost money, but long term, I'm still bullish. Long term, we're still early.
Yeah, I think so.
So
it depends on. I was trying to think who's really losing out on this. Like who are the people that suffer? I think it's the regular people that have money in pension funds, and the pension funds have invested in, in these stocks. So I'm thinking about like. My father-in-law is like physical therapist, and then in Holland there's a law that his pension has to be invested by a pension fund that he cannot choose.
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
and it
really?
just goes into that. Yeah, and then it's a private practice. He's his own businessman. He's an entrepreneur, and your pension by law has to go to a certain place. And these guys, of course, to be honest with you, I don't think they have Palantir, and I'm just saying this in the kindest possible way, So yeah, I'm just saying it how it is, And I'm thinking my own pension fund, I worked a few years for my company after I sold it to Royal Dutch KPN. And I also had to pay into their pension fund. Every year I get a letter, May 1st, it's coming again in a few weeks. You know what it says? The costs of maintaining your portfolio are higher than the revenue.
That's insane.
It's zero. These they've been able to, if they would have just bought ETFs, how can you get it to zero? I paid thousands, paid a few hundred a month, so... Yeah, so I'm thinking of...
That's insane.
I'm thinking of people like the mailman. I'm serious, like the mailman or the person that, just do regular jobs and don't have the choice of where to invest.
Yeah, that's really tricky. It's really sad. Yeah. But like I said, I think it's just temporary. Like this entire thing is just temporary. It's in the moment. Overall, we have some very bullish crypto news this week, but the tariffs and the markets have completely overwhelmed media to the point where no one even knows what's going on. And that's quite sad, because how can you have bullish sentiment when you're not even seeing the bullish news?
Yeah, that's true. Let's start with this. So this is the spotlight on the regular stock market. Here we go. And
Oh,
swanky, huh?
it's
Yeah.
swanky.
I had some time last night. What's interesting, I think. So these are the Batman stocks, also called the Magnificent Seven by some people. So this is the year to date. If you have a little bit of a longer outlook, it's quite horrible. It's minus 18. But it's
Yeah.
also, okay, let me take Tesla as an example. It really shines here for being shitty, minus 38. But we also have to be honest. So the Tesla also is still up 44% if you compare it to last year. So it's
Last
down
year,
38. 1 year ago, so 12 months back, it's
Okay.
still actually up, and that's what surprises me. So that's Tesla here. So minus 38, nothing to be proud of. But now let's look at the other one, and that's the more painful one. I guess for you, to be fair, because I'm right now still not in crypto. Here's your crypto
Yeah.
market. Hello, you want to take us through this? But I have to start. We have to say it. Bitcoin only down minus 11. Well, think about it. The average of the big tech stocks was down minus 18. That was the group
Yeah.
average for those 8. Now
yeah.
you look at Bitcoin, only minus 11, but now look at Ethereum. I mean, minus 53.
Yeah,
More
but we
than
speak
Dogecoin,
about
which-
this, right? It's come up almost every episode that Ethereum just has negative sentiment around it. And so moments like this, you're really going to feel that negative sentiment.
You think? Minus 53 this year. And this is
Yeah.
after having a horrible year last year without an all-time high. All the cryptos last year had an all-time high, pretty much. Your granny's crypto, all your crazy meme coins, except Ethereum. And
Yeah.
nothing to add about it. Solana, actually, I'm surprised, also down so much. And that is, I guess, because the meme coin market sort of dried up that Solana was thriving on.
It did, yeah. But also that Trump meme coin that was launched. And I mean, there's just been a lot of crap on Solana recently. Even Pump.fun, they were generating massive transaction volumes on Solana. Pump.fun dried up because of the whole peak that it had back in January. There are barely any tokens being launched or even graduating off of Pump.fun. It's just like everyone's worried that transaction fees that were coming through Pump.fun alone.
Which marketeer came up with the phrase graduating from Pump.fun? I really wonder. That person is brilliant. If you talk about claiming and framing, so explain graduating from Pump.fun, because it is brilliant.
Okay,
It means you have a certain minimum market cap or something, like?
Yes, exactly. So when a token, you can launch on Pump.fun and you have a minimum, what's it called, market cap of like 5,000. When it hits a certain market cap, it goes on to Radium, which is a DEX on Solana. As you know, Pump.fun has now created their own Pump swap and severed that unofficial partnership that they had with Radium. So Radium's launching a Pump.fun competitor. At the same time, though, the meme coin market has completely dried up. And so there's just barely any tokens that are even reaching the market cap to graduate onto the decentralized exchanges. And here we are. Everything's just kind of shriveled up into raisins.
Yeah, I never feel older than when I hear these things like graduating from Pump.fun. And Pump.fun launched their own swap called Pump Swap.
Pump swap. I swear, and it did like 2.5 bill on the first day in trading volume. There's so much money in crypto. It's insane.
Yeah, it is crazy. Okay, so you had some other positive news. We've talked about how
Yes.
bad it was. We've talked about how crypto gone down, and we showed the charts. This is sort of what everyone's done.
Yeah.
I just tried to look at the big tech stocks, the Magnificent Seven plus Broadcom, which is somehow
Yeah.
always forgotten. It only is always mentioned when it goes down. Poor guys at Broadcom.
No.
One little in between, I have to tell you this. So I had with two friends a business website back in Holland, 2008, and during the financial crisis. And one of the weirdest headlines we ever had was CEO builds sex cave. And I still think that was the former CEO of Broadcom. We started with Broadcom CEO fired. No one clicked on it. Nobody cares. But then you had this tool called Mint when you see the web traffic. And the editor writing it said, okay, this is this really interesting article. This guy has sent his wife to Hawaii with his mother-in-law. And in the meantime, he was building like this dungeon underneath their house for his sexual
Oh my
sexual activities.
God.
And then I said, "You mean the CEO built a sex cave?" And he goes, "That's the headline." And that's when I realized journalism had taken the turn that I wasn't ready for. The stuff that you would
Yeah.
normally say in the editing room was now getting published, and then we just saw the clicks go up. Just boom, boom, boom.
hmm
CEO built sex cave. 3 words, right? So you had some positive news that you
Yeah,
want to share with
I
me.
did. Yeah, I did. So, I mean, there's a lot of positive news. So yes, to start off with, CZ, as we know last week, is advising Kyrgyzstan on their crypto adoption or blockchain adoption. And he's just signed with the Pakistani government to turn Pakistan into a blockchain and crypto hub, which is really interesting because now I'm curious to see who India is going to pick.
I wonder how they pay him. I'm serious. Would they pay him would they pay him money? Would I really wonder. Like, what's the fee for having a guy of that level? So CZ, the former
I
founder of
would think
Binance,
so.
former
Yeah.
CEO. Brilliant man.
Well,
Served a prison sentence for basically poor KYC AML and paying a
oh,
huge
did
fine
you
for it.
see? He
No?
basically ratted on Justin Sun to the
No.
Department of Justice to as a plea deal to get out of the U.S. It was
Oh,
reported
I
this
didn't know.
morning by the Wall Street Journal. My last bit of bullish crypto news is that the Senate has approved Trump's pro-crypto SEC chair pick, Paul Atkins.
I have no horse in this race. But I'm happy about this because I really didn't like the former SEC chairman. Was just weird and it didn't make any sense. All the
Yeah,
nonsense he was starting.
yeah,
I think I said it a
yeah.
few times, but I want to keep saying that the 28 companies that Andreessen Horowitz invested in crypto, 24 of them received a Wells notice. They're basically in lawsuits against the SEC.
It's
And
just so crazy.
it really
Like,
it stopped American innovation in crypto. It's really a shame.
it did. And well, the Ripple case is coming to an end this month, so that'll be good. But I personally feel like it's one of those buy the rumor, sell the news situations.
Yeah, it's already all priced in. It was priced
Yeah.
in last year. That's the whole thing. Last quarter of
hmm
last year, the whole Trump
Yeah,
positive thing in crypto was already priced in. So that's the thing. So
exactly. Exactly.
that's your positive thing. So in my world, and I'll go through it quickly, but I do think it's fun to show this in a different way. OpenAI last week raised $40 billion, 40 billion, and I love so much how they announce it. This is their website, new funding to build towards AGI. But how shitty is this graphic? What is this?
Seriously,
What?
it was probably made by Dali.
I know it probably is, but there's no, and then again, very much in the spirit of OpenAI, there's no attribution of the source.
Oh man.
Haha, double entendre right there.
Well,
And then it came out right afterwards that OpenAI has discussed buying Jony Ive and Sam Altman's AI device startup. But Sam Altman, he is the co-founder and CEO of OpenAI. So he is discussing using the 40 billion he just got to buy a company that he is a shareholder in.
so that he can
Conflict of
finally pay
interest.
himself.
That way. And then here, but the startup that he's talking about, I am absolutely fascinated by. This is Jony Ive. He was Steve Jobs' design guru at Apple for many years. And absolute genius. People always say, why do you like Apple so much? Because I use it the whole day and I'd like to look at beautiful things. Do you want an ugly wife or do you want a pretty wife? You have the choice. Why would you have an ugly computer and an ugly software? I never get that. The information broke that news. So OpenAI
Yeah.
reportedly mulls buying Jony Ive and Sam Altman's AI hardware startup. Here's the fun part. Nobody knows what they're building.
That's
The rumor is
crazy.
it's an AI device, mobile AI device, and the New York Times did a fantastic article about him. And I wrote this article on my blog about it. Are Jony Ive and Sam Altman developing an iPhone killer with AI? But they have announced, here comes the best part, the thing should not be as socially addictive as an iPhone. And apparently this device does not have a screen. But those again could be rumors. So it will be a beautiful AI device without a screen. Then I'm wondering what the heck is it going to be? And the company that Jony Ive started with money from Sam Altman and Steve Jobs' widow, Laureen Powell Jobs, was called Love From, and this is their logo. Now this is a much
Okay.
nicer logo. I like Love From, and the company that they're going to buy is apparently called IO Products, which just makes no sense to me. But what I do want to mention is this: so Jony Ive did well at Apple because for his startup he bought a $60 million theater as an office because it has a parking spot in the back in San Francisco. There you see the San Francisco pyramid. By
That's
the way,
insane.
yes, that's why I love those little things. Like he bought this little Fox Theater that I happen to know because I used to live not too far from there. And there's a parking lot in the back, and they like the parking lot. His office is there. They just 60 million. Okay, so that was OpenAI. But then former CTO Mira Murati, I can say Mira because I'm European and she's originally Albanian, but probably Mira Murati. She is raising 2 billion.
2 bill.
At least a 10 billion valuation for her seed round. I just want to repeat this: the seed round. This is normally
But
like
she was
2
only
million.
CEO for like a
weekend.
day, like a week.
Take that back. It was at least 3 times as long as you said. It was 72 hours. But she was CTO before she worked with Elon Musk at Tesla. Funny part about her is interesting. She is not a software designer or software engineer. She is actually multidisciplinary engineer. So she did sensors and that kind of stuff for the Tesla self-driving cars. And then did something completely different at OpenAI. But she thought she was having a great week. I'm raising 2 billion at a 10 billion valuation. This is her website. I do want to show Thinking Machines. Clearly in AI, you got to have a really shitty website. To be cool, this is your website. You have no image.
Yeah.
You have, it looks like it was written on my grandma's typewriter.
It's so funny. It's a meme coin game. It's exactly the meme coin game. I will give you the worst layout, the worst website, and the shittier it is, the more money I will raise.
Well, she
That's
was
just how it
beaten.
works.
And she was, you're totally right, because she was beaten by this guy. This is Safe Superintelligence. The former, I cannot say his name, Ilya Sutskever, but he's a brilliant, brilliant man by all accounts. Again,
Sequoia,
I wrote about him.
A16Z.
Yeah, this guy is so brilliant. He is the reason that Elon Musk and Larry Page, co-founder of Google, had a fight because they were both trying to recruit him. Now, if you're that good that those two people fight over you and break off a friendship, you got to be really smart. And this is his website, Safe Superintelligence. And
Beautiful.
he is raising, it's beautiful because it's even smaller fonts and you can only read this with a microscope. But here we go. Exclusive. This came out this morning. Alphabet and Nvidia are investing in his company SSI. There we go. At a valuation of 30 billion. 30 billion.
Wow.
There you go.
So overpriced.
And that's why she looks sad here. See, that's why she's praying. She wants that valuation too. She doesn't want 10 billion. She wants 30. So, yeah, please. But these numbers are just, it's weird, huh? Talk about positive news that's overshadowed.
Really had to look for the news. But I think we can probably close off in a little bit of a recap on the tariffs because of how much it's overwhelmed the entire media and how much is going on.
Yeah, I do want to do that, but I want to finish with one thing here. Because there was a great Stanford AI research report, and that's the one. I'll put all the links in the show notes. But what's so interesting here, this is the top takeaway at the end. Complex reasoning remains a challenge. There's 12 takeaways. I'll share them all in the show notes, the link to this report. But complex reasoning remains a challenge. Yet, no problem putting billions in these companies that are startups who don't have a product yet, even though this is going on. So that was just my news. It was positive with a mix like little twist at the end. Now
Creative.
Thank you. You like that little twist I put on top, huh? So go, that's a reference to an 80s movie. But you go, you still had something to circle back to the tariffs.
Well, yeah, I mean, we all know that there's a 90-day pause with a 10% tariff going on. Pause, except for China. I think some interesting news there is how Europe and China are I guess now joining forces and trying to create a relationship where China has promised the EU the best prices for electric vehicles, and the EU and China are going to work together for electric vehicles, which is absurd because the European car market is
It can never be. I think that's just a political statement, Nish, really. I really think the Europeans, the French car industry and the German car industry, those two countries drive Europe, literally. Ha ha ha. There's not even a pun. Their in the car industries will be killed by the Chinese. You drive a Chinese car.
I know.
Your car is awesome.
I know.
And
yeah.
for a price,
it's such
you couldn't
a
get a
good
European
car.
Yeah, you couldn't get a
Oh
European
my
car even
God.
close to that quality for that price.
Exactly. But that's why I got it, right? And it's super popular here in the Middle East. They imported 500,000 of them last year. So
Indonesia,
just in the UAE.
Yeah, in the UAE, think of Indonesia, not a small country, 270 million people. and all now moving to cars, unfortunately. The largest growing numbers, of course, they're no longer Korean or Japanese, are Chinese manufacturers, and they're so good.
Yeah.
The BYD, the Wuling, I see them all the time, and they're really good cars. They're cheap.
Yeah, they're
So I
really
don't
good.
see.
They're really good.
Do you ever see Europe and China really? I think they're doing it to put pressure on Trump. That's not a real. It's not a real marriage. That's like
I
fake
don't
dating.
know. I don't know. You never know. It might be
They're
an act
gonna
of desperation that they're going to regret later. Sometimes the EU just doesn't think as well, let's be honest. They're not known to be
really.
the most strategic. No,
What
they
one
really
thing though that's
don't.
I think is really important. I really looked up this week again, Wall Street Journal and ChatGPT. Performance of the UK after Brexit, and this is why I think isolation and tariffs really don't work. They're lagging the EU in everything. Just every economic indicator they're doing horrible at. And I never
Yeah.
thought it would go this bad because I heard this 20 years ago when they didn't join Euro and they stayed with the pound. They all said, oh, it's going to be horrible. And they did fine. But they haven't done fine after Brexit. And I'm afraid that with the tariffs, we're going that way. No economist can see any positive outcome if these tariffs persist. So try and
Yeah.
spin this positive, young lady.
Well, the UK, Trump said that he will reduce tariffs for the UK if they start importing US chicken and beef. So,
Well, that's a positive note to end with. And there was something with chloride in it?
chlorinated.
In the,
Yeah, because if you Google it, you will see all the headlines saying chlorinated chicken coming to the UK, what you should know, and like, yeah. Okay, yeah, we get it. American meat sucks.
does it mean it's
But
extra
like,
clean? The chicken is extra clean.
it means it's full of chemicals.
Yeah, chlorine. I didn't sound good to me. So to close
Yeah.
off on, final question. Next week, predictions. We don't give financial advice. NFA stands for Nish Frackers and something else. Anyone
And
else?
not financial advice.
And not financial advice. But for next week, you bullish, bearish, or you sort of mid?
Mid. And mid. I think now that we have a 90-day stopgap or pause, markets will kind of get used to it. It'll be interesting what happens after the 90 days, but I think at least for this week, I really can't predict. I'm just going sideways. What about you?
I think positive. I think it's going to be up a few points. But let's see. We were not right last week. We said last week in the taping of the episode, we thought it was going to go sideways. It went sideways and then a little bit like a black slope, diamond ski slope down. It didn't recover all the way. For the next week, I'm thinking slow comeback. Slow comeback. Seriously. So let's see. We'll
Okay.
look back at our predictions. But end of the year,
Yeah.
we're still thinking Bitcoin all-time high. Yes.
Yeah,
Me
100%.
too. All right. Thanks for watching. If you want to like, comment, subscribe, great to do all those things. Especially any suggestions for us, any items, any questions you want us to discuss or things you completely disagree with, then let Nish know. Anything you agree with, let me know. Any compliments, send them my way.
That's right.
Yeah. Any suggestions, let us know on LinkedIn, YouTube, Substack, and Apple Podcast and Spotify. You can find us there.
And
the
if you
socials.
haven't already, subscribe to our newsletter.
Oh yeah, on LinkedIn, the NFA Podcast newsletter. Thanks. See you next week.
Okay.
Go to the
See
beach.
ya. Bye-bye.
NFA Podcast with Nish and Frackers. All things crypto tech and Web3 markets, trends, and analysis, but not financial advice.